Oh, look out now. It's the Bourbon and Banter podcast, the biggest and most honest podcast in all of bourbon. That's right, friends and neighbors. We got everything you need to drink curious right here. So sit back, grab a pour, and check your feelings at the door, because we're here to lay it down for you as only Bourbon and Banter can. This month, we are coming to you live and in living color, unless you got one of them old black and white TVs, from the Summit headquarters 2025 down in Louisville, Kentucky. You've got some exceptional guests with us that we're going to get to right away. We have all agreed to let it fly in celebrating Bourbon and Banter's anniversary. Look out now, because here we go.
You know what? At 14 years, Bob, we're just really not legal.
Well, that's never stopped some of these.
We're in
fellas,
Kentucky.
You know,
I mean, it's different down here.
That's true. It is in Kentucky.
All right, different rules. I mean, just the other night, right, Wisconsin, apparently you, between the ages of, 5 and 18, you can walk into any establishment with your parents, legally drink.
As long as, if you have a legal guardian,
right.
As long as the establishment is okay with
right.
it.
But once you turn 18, you can't do that until you're 21.
Correct.
Right. So
that's what I've been told.
I was born in the worst state because I didn't get that benefit. But anyway, as Bob said, here we are at the 2025 Bourbon and Banter Summit, the night before the magic starts. And we thought it'd be fun to sit down and record a podcast with a couple members and an esteemed guest and talk about what has transpired over the 14 years since we launched Bourbon and Banter way back in 2011. So tonight, Bob and I are joined by Brent Joseph, who is our community manager as well as our single barrel program manager. Welcome, Brent. How long have you been involved with Bourbon and Banter now?
I think we're approaching 10 years.
10 years?
It might be 11, but I think 10.
10. All right, we'll go with 11. And
for those of you who have listened previously, when you hear us talk about the fantabulous King David hot dogs of Indianapolis, Indiana, this, ladies and gentlemen, is the King David of King David hot dogs now. So,
or as we like to call him,
the Weenie Wizard
of Carmel, Indiana.
Carmel, Indiana.
I just found out about this. It's been 10 years, and on the way down here, I hear about it on the podcast.
That's right. We like to break the news softly. We're also joined by Mr. Steve Coomes, who is our illustrious editor and tasting host and generally nice guy. Steve, how long ago was it that you and I got stuck next to each other on that bus at the Bourbon Classic?
I want to ask about illustrious first. I mean, that should be reflected in my pay.
It is.
I'm illustrious.
It is. We don't pay for quality.
I don't know, 5 or 6 years. At least it's pre-COVID.
Oh, it's got to be longer than that now, right?
I don't know.
He came in at the same time I did, 7 years ago.
7 years ago? Okay.
Wow. Okay.
All right. And then our super special top secret guest, a man who needs no introduction unless you're climbing out from underneath a rock drinking vodka, is Mr. Dan Gardner, retired Esquire, VIP, SOP.
SOB.
Because some days SOB.
Industry legend.
So Dan, what did you do in your career? Real quick, where were you working at? How long? And
oh gosh, where I was working at that point Commonwealth Wine and Spirits, but I started out at Kentucky Wine and Spirits. We were the Beam National Distillers Distributor. We merged with the Vertner Smith Company in the late 90s when Southern Wine and Spirits moved into the market. So I was there with Commonwealth till 2002. March of 2002, I went to work for Southern, became brand manager for Four Roses then in 2004. So that's where my association with Four Roses came about. So,
and you spent how long with Four Roses directly?
14 years, October of 2009 till March of 2024.
All right. Well, that's a long time.
44 years total.
44 years total. Okay. And many of you who have been part of the Bourbon and Banter community may recognize Dan because he was the face on our Constant Gardner Four Roses pick several years ago. And
still have my case.
You still have your case. Fantastic. All right. Well, let's kick things off. I'm going to take us all the way back to when I launched Bourbon and Banter, because a lot of people don't know the story. And I was working in advertising, and I was going out to a lot of media dinners, right? Facebook, Google, taking their clients out. And I learned that drinking cocktails with a lot of sugar were a real problem. And I was and as I got in my 30s, a little harder to get up. So I said, I've got to find a spirit that I can drink that doesn't require soda, right? Or something sweet added to it. I tried scotch, and unfortunately I jumped into the wrong end of the pool on that front. And then I tried bourbon, and while it wasn't a deep love at first, it's something I was like, okay, I can get into this. And so I dove in, and then ultimately I found a couple kindred spirits at work, and we were talking one day. It's actually my friend Les and our HR head, and we were like, hey, we're big fans of Mad Men, and they're in advertising, we're in advertising, so why can't we get drunk during the day, or why can't we drink during the day? And the HR guy goes, well, actually, there's nothing in the HR manual that prohibits it. He goes, but maybe don't get drunk and piss in the windowsill. Because we had just watched that episode, and we're like, okay. So he looked at me, Les looked at me and said, hey, if you go out and buy a bar for the office, I'll buy the first 4 bottles. So 15 minutes later, I sent him a receipt from eBay where I bought a vintage replica Globe bar and had it delivered. So that started what we called Bourbon Club. We did that for several months. And then because there was about 30 of us in the office, I created a Facebook page called Bourbon and Banter. I liked the sound of it. I thought it's a way for us to communicate about when Bourbon Club was live and whatnot. And then I got an edition of Bourbon Plus magazine. I posted it, tagged them on Facebook back in the day. And over the weekend, I went from 30 members to 300 plus. And I said, holy shit, there's something going on here. And now this was the days, right, when you found someone who was into bourbon. You're like, hey, do you like bourbon? And they're like, I like bourbon. We should drink bourbon together. And it was whispered in hallways, in shadows, and things of that nature, because people still thought you were kind of a drunk if you drank a lot of bourbon. So once again, put this around 2009, 2010. And this eventually led into Bourbon and Banter when I decided I wanted to come to Kentucky and I wanted to get behind the scenes access. Now, this is when Jim Beam had just launched their renewed tour. Jim Rutledge was still at the helm at Four Roses. Jimmy Russell was still super active with Wild Turkey. And I put together the first annual Bourbon and Banter VIP pilgrimage, which was 2.5 days of programming. I had 11 tickets to sell. No one knew who the hell I was. And I launched the Bourbon and Banter website to sell those tickets. But that first trip, we got to spend 4 hours with Jimmy Russell. We spent a half a day with Jim Rutledge, with the Samuels. Bernie Lovers hosted a dinner for us while he was still with Jim Beam. It was like the last week he was at Jim Beam before he went to Heaven Hill. And we tried to replicate that just a year later. So that was 2012. And just a year later, we couldn't coordinate any schedules. So all of this to say, we were a little bit ahead of the curve. And here we are now, 14, 15 years later, and we've seen a lot of changes. So, Brent, if you look back to what you were doing 2011, how has your bourbon world changed?
I would say that what I liked to drink back then was much easier to find. And I would regularly, I wouldn't say spend a day, but like every once in a while I have a little extra time. Like, oh, I'm going to stop at this liquor store. I'm going to stop here at wherever and maybe go out of my way at this place and just hunt, right? Mm-hmm. But not like I'm spending the whole day doing it. Like when you think of like a bourbon hunt, and I would just pick up whatever was around, but it was regularly stuff that you wanted to find. Back then in like 11, I liked Blanton's a lot. And, you know, you can shit on it all you want, but back then in 11, before probably most of the people listening now, Blanton's is not, back then in 11, it was way different than what it is now.
Sure.
I think the quality of the product, the bottle's still cool, right? And it was harder to get. Obviously it's harder to get. Now, it wasn't easy to find, but you would find it pretty here and there, right? And it was $54 a bottle, which was higher end for back then. And the product was fantastic. And Eagle Rare was on the shelf everywhere. You could find it at CVS. You could find it at Kroger. And it was $29.99, right? Or $27.99 a bottle. So access to stuff was way different back then. I would find every once in a while I get lucky, and here and there, very lucky, but I would find Pappy or any Van Winkle at retail at a couple different places.
Okay.
But I mean, that's the biggest thing, access. And now it's gotten so big, people are chasing it everywhere. They're paying crazy money on secondary. There was really not much Facebook secondary stuff going on back then.
All right. So Bob, think back to 2011. How much bourbon were you even drinking back then?
I was just drinking basically stuff you could find regularly. I never got into limited editions before there were limited editions. Although I remember in 2000 paying $60 for a bottle of Kentucky Spirit Turkey as a gift for a friend of mine. And I think the price has changed over 25 years, but at that time it was the 2 barrels.
Right.
I agree with Brent that, we liked Blantons at that time. Despite whatever I may have said since then, but it was a much better product back then.
It's still not a bad product. It's just not nearly what it was.
And the
10,
price
12
point
years
where
ago.
it's at is not where it should be. But
or the hype.
I was drinking Maker's Mark. I've always drank Wild Turkey.
Right.
And the whole spectrum of the turkey brand.
When did you, because you were, for years, when I first met you, right? You were Mr. Four Roses. When did that love affair start?
That started in, it's not ended. It's not ended, right? That started in 2009, or was it 2000? No, it was 2015.
I was going to say.
So my wife and I had come down here a couple times. We first came down here in 2009, which is really when our love affair with Makers started.
Okay.
And Heaven Hill. And then in 2015, we came back down, and that's when we showed up at the Cox's Creek facility, and we were some of the only people there. And we absolutely loved the people, and that's when the Four Roses thing started, and then really started heating up over the next couple of years before I met him. So when I first met Dan, he was coming in as a friend of mine. And he came in, I was like, I can't wait to meet this guy. I want to talk to him all about this stuff. And he looks at me and he's like, yeah, okay. Oh, you like the bourbon. Very good. He hears this, 10,000 times a day. And then I start going into the mash bills and all this. Goes, oh, okay, well, maybe he does know what he's,
Right.
a little bit more than that. And then, from there, I start helping him at whiskey fests and stuff, and pouring things so that he can go out and talk to people. And, it took off from there. It wasn't until I found Bourbon and Banter that I really got heavier into all the other various things.
My apologies. Now, Dan, he fell in love with Four Roses in 2015. And remind everyone who maybe doesn't know the history, what year did Four Roses come back to the U.S. market after its decades-long absence?
It was 2002. I went to work for Southern in March of 2002. And one of the first big kickoff meetings I did was, I can't remember if it was August or September. Rutledge came in and we did the kickoff. We only had Yellow Label, the 80 proof at that time. And, that was tough, but it really took off. It really took off at 2004. I became brand manager for it with the release of Single Barrel. So I'd managed the launch of the Beam Small Batch Collection in the early 90s for Kentucky Wine and Spirits, and all the Wild Turkey limited edition things, Russell's Reserve, all of that. So I had that background, and I'd managed Julian's Van Winkle collection for 20 years. But I always jokingly say that was before, back then you had to put a gun to people's heads and make them buy it, which has changed a little bit, to say the least. So it took over in 2004, and then I went to work directly for Four Roses in October of 2009. So I was at Southern 7 years.
Okay.
Going on a lifetime.
Now, Steve, when you and I met at the Bourbon Classic 7+ years ago, you hadn't been involved in bourbon for very long at that point in time, if I remember correctly.
You're right. I didn't start drinking it until probably 2013, 2014. So I was way behind. I was drinking everything else, it seemed, except bourbon. And the way I got into it was realizing that I'm in Kentucky. I should be writing about this. I was already starting to really get into tequila and wine and stuff I've been in wine for a long time, since my restaurant time. But bourbon really was an epiphany for me. And for whatever reason, my palate was open to it at that point. So I really started to get into just showing up, getting invited to distillery tours, media events, all that, and just tasting and tasting and tasting. Like, this is freaking good. Where's this been all my life? So I was a late comer to it, but I caught fire quickly.
Absolutely. Now, I think it's interesting listening to Brent and your name is Bob, talking about
just 3 letters.
There's 3 letters, right? But there's so much.
It's on my shirt, dude. It's right here. It just.
It's that 1792 hefty pours we got today.
You guys haven't been together since
shout out to
6 a.m.
Shout out to Michael Smith for those pours today. But you talked about Blantons, right? And I think we all make fun of people who are gaga over Blantons now, and I think people who do say they have 30 bottles deserve a little bit of teasing, but we've all been there, right? And our palates shift and change over the years. Bob's shaking his head. What do you mean?
No, we haven't all been there. So when you were drinking Blantons.
No, you said you like Blantons.
No, hold on. When you were drinking Blantons, why'd you drink it?
Because it tasted good.
I was drinking it because it tasted good. When you all were drinking it, you were drinking it because it tasted good. What's happening now is people are drinking bourbon and they just want to go grab it because everybody tells them, oh, that's what you got to go for.
Or they want a shelf queen to show their
Right,
friends.
but my point is that we evolve. That's the point I'm trying to take, is we've kind of evolved. And I want to just call out what we have in our glass. So you're fucking up my segue as we go. Bob.
I'm supposed to be, this is the most honest podcast in bourbon. I'm supposed
right.
to give you this.
That's right.
He's playing the heel.
Check
right.
your feelings at the door, Pops, okay?
You said he's playing the heel?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well played, Bob. So what we were drinking, this is this year's and rumored to be the last Wild Turkey Master's Keep release. This is Beacon. And this is a blend that holds some of the last barrels made at the former Turkey distillery before they rebuilt, and some of the whiskey that Bruce Russell first laid down when he first started distilling. So it's a blend of the old and the new. So the Master's Keep collection, I think we've all talked about this over the years, is the price has been a little steep and still is steep, right? We all know the Bourbon and Banter perspective on expensive whiskey. It's kind of getting outrageous. But this is the first Master's Keep in a long time that really is a little bit exciting to me, because this has got a fantastic nose, great palate. And I think Wild Turkey for a lot of us has been a brand that's stood for a lot of our belief in bourbon. And Bob and I joked on the podcast that came out today, right, that Jimmy Russell will tell you, don't change a damn thing. There's even a campaign right now booked on him about how Wild Turkey's tasted the same. But then there's a label out from Bruce talking about creating a bourbon that harkens back to the old days, because obviously things have changed. So I'd be real interesting, real quick, for any of you, what does Wild Turkey mean to you? Bob, let's go there.
So why I started drinking Wild Turkey, I didn't start drinking until I was 23. And I started drinking mixed drinks with sodas, and then quickly, within like 6 months, started drinking straight whiskey. And I was in grad school. We'd go out and people would want to do shots. And I always thought it was stupid. Why do you want to just shoot a drink and not taste it just to get yourself messed up? I never understood the point with that. The way I stopped it was like, okay, you want to do that? Sure. Let's do 101. Be like, oh my God, no. And because everybody reacts that way when you're that young, because they just think about they had it when they were a teenager or something, and they had a bad experience. And so Wild Turkey was always forbidden to most common people.
Oh, no, back in college, you took a shot of 101. You were kind of seen as a badass.
So I would take it, and then I'd say, and not only are we going to do 101, but I'm going to sip it because I want to enjoy my whiskey. And that's how
Such a maverick.
That love affair. And then I just started grabbing all the different bottles that would come from Wild Turkey. Russell's Reserve, the 10-year was my favorite for years. But it was always fantastic to me, and it was something that I knew. I didn't start drinking beer until it got to the point where I couldn't afford to drink Wild Turkey anymore. Then I started drinking beer. But
so Brent, what I don't remember was Russell's our first barrel pick as a group? Do you remember? I think it was.
It was the first one.
Anniversary,
the first one that they didn't mess up.
Yeah. Well, the first one that they did mess up was our first pick, right?
No, because we did 2 picks with them. The first one I think was fine, and then the second one got messed up, and so when they went back and did it,
Yes.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
So Russell's 10 was our first pick because I was a huge fan. That was
We
one of
did
my
that
favorite.
before we did a Four Roses.
I think so.
Yes, we did. We did the one where you picked a squat barrel too, and then they bottled them.
That
both
was the second
incorrectly.
time where they
that was
messed
the
up.
second time.
Yeah.
That was the second time.
Not to sound like, I mean, we've done a lot of these, so some of them run together, and I've done additional ones that aren't just necessarily with Bourbon and Banter on groups that I've been invited with. So there's a lot of barrel
we
picks
got it. You're a big deal.
that run together. But I do, I think that one was, we brought down the van and we all rode together. And
Right.
Yeah. I think so.
Okay. So Dan, I'm interested for Wild Turkey. I mean, obviously your allegiance over the years was the Four Roses, but you're not going to give me the answer to Jim Rutledge. I remember asking Jim, what do you drink when you don't drink Four Roses, right? And he kind of looked at me and he said, Diet Coke. But I know you're
Sounds
not,
like Jim.
you're retired now and you don't have to do it. So where was Wild Turkey in your mind in terms of quality and memory and stories?
Well, when I started with Kentucky Wine and Spirits in 1980, we were the Wild Turkey distributor. So Wild Turkey's always had a big spot in my heart. So, I remember when the first visitor center opened up, that little house by the railroad tracks.
Oh, man, yeah.
That's been, 35 years ago at least. I don't know. So Wild Turkey has always been a huge part of my background. So, and again, there are just no better people on the face of the earth than the Russells, of course. So I guess I've got a question for Bob is, with that Russell's Reserve you were drinking, was it the 101 or was it the 90 proof? The one, yeah. Jimmy wasn't real happy when the marketers came in and wanted him to change it, wanted to drop it down to 90 proof. I personally think it helped it. I did at the time. I'd like to taste those things now, after 25 years. But yeah, Wild Turkey was, a lot of stories, too many.
All right. So obviously we all move on. Oh, but Brent, yes, raising your hand.
Yeah, you asked me, the regular turkey question, but I never got to answer about like what thoughts of turkey I had. And so turkey to me has always been like one of the, if not the OG brand, right? It's one of the most recognizable ones, even though it may not be the oldest. When you think of bourbon, you always think of Wild Turkey. Like growing up, like you knew what it was. Like you saw the bottle, you saw the ass kicking chicken on there. Like it wasn't something that I gravitated towards, even when I started my bourbon journey. And Wild Turkey still isn't one of the distilleries that it's not one of my go-tos. I do enjoy it, but the one that I usually, when I was during and still on, my bourbon journey, I for whatever reason I gravitated towards the Fantail, the spirits, right? That one I really liked more than the other ones, but to me, Wild Turkey has always been like just classic American bourbon.
Yeah, absolutely. When I do a lot of my tastings, and Steve helps me with a lot of these, and whenever we put Russell's Reserve 10 in, which is a lot, because I think it's a great traditional mash bill bourbon, gives a lot of great characters for that style. When I unveil it, people are always surprised when I tell them it's a Wild Turkey product. And I was like, don't be surprised. I mean, a lot of people have this image of Wild Turkey that it's for old men, bikers, and badasses.
There's a lot of preconceived notions that aren't necessarily positive when associated with Wild Turkey.
I was literally going to say the exact same. The thing I love to do is blind people on bottles from Turkey.
Yeah.
And they could be just a casual person. I did it with Branford Marsalis and his band. Mm-hmm. And when I told him it was Wild Turkey, he looked at me and said, "Are you kidding me?" Because everybody's got those memories from when they were younger, and that's what it is. And so I have had more people look at me like when they realize it's Wild Turkey, because there's that misconception.
I mean, it's an adult beverage. I mean, it has the two flavors I picked up on when I finally started to catch on to it were leather and cured tobacco.
Yeah.
I'm not a smoker, but I had farmer cousins who's cured their own tobacco. Those are big, bold notes. So you can't. I don't tell people that's where you should start. I had to come on to it, and when I did, I was like, oh, this is fantastic.
I go as far as to tell everyone that everybody should have 2 bottles of Wild Turkey 101 in their possession at all times. One for their home bar, because they can drink it neat. They can mix it with cocktails. They can put it on the rocks, and they can let their neighbor Phil come over and mix it with Diet Coke and not get upset because it's $19. Right. The second bottle goes in the back of the truck or in the trunk of the car, because if you get in a snowstorm, 1, it can double as windshield wiper fluid. 2, it can keep you warm. And 3, in a pinch, it'll degrease your engine. And for $19 a bottle, no harm, no foul. So remember, a 2-bottle pack Christmas gift to the person on your list that you need a gift for.
All purpose.
Anybody getting that for the holidays. And if you've got a bourbon drinker, you give them some 101, no matter who they are, they're going to thank you.
And that's right. So I don't know about you guys, but my glass is sprung a leak.
It is.
So
Steve had some samples.
Steve, you brought some samples here, and you brought some stuff because I said I want some brands that will remind us of some stories and of our personal journey. So where do you want us to go next here?
Well, I would love to start with, there's going to be a lot of natural sound here that you don't want to edit out. So it sounds like we had a bar fight in here. I have some King of Kentucky samples. Right. This is the 2025. There's 60 mils left.
Dude, that is like, what the hell? That was
so,
for my protection.
So what folks can't see Pops doing right now is, so Steve has put a wax over it.
We got
no, that was electrical tape. He's high class.
Yeah, wax.
Oh, that's right there, the camera, so I can't make shit up, and people.
I have already gotten to enjoy this. So you guys pass that around. I think it's one of the best whiskeys I've reviewed this year, if not the best.
I'm excited.
Real quick,
Thanks for bringing this.
While they're doing that, why don't you talk a little bit about that review that's about to go live tomorrow? You don't write a lot of negative reviews, but
is this all for me?
There's
well, if there's any left, pass that back.
Yeah, you have a Blue Run review going up tomorrow.
I do.
And tell us how much you enjoyed that bourbon.
It wasn't horrible, but what was horrible about it was the price.
It wasn't horrible.
So that's what you want to hear.
I was kind of segueing to Pop's sarcasm. It was not, how much did you love it? I wouldn't pass on drinking it if somebody poured it for me, but it's a $129 bottle for what is a blend of 5 and 6 year old whiskeys. Give me a break.
That's a Blue Run playbook, right?
I have found that to be pretty consistent across that brand. The bottle's really cool looking. And if you blind it, the stuff's pretty good in it. It's not off-putting. I like it. I enjoy it until someone tells me how much it cost.
Right.
And then I'm like, no way.
And
right?
you told me specifically that the earlier bottles were older whiskeys that were better. Is that correct?
I believe so. But
but not like super old though.
No. But like
very few were super old.
$100, $120, $130 a bottle or what they're charging for some of those.
Give me a break.
No, $40. I'm in all day. $40 would be on my bar all day long. Because I liked it, especially was it like Reflection 1, the bourbon, I really enjoyed that one.
I don't know. It had a pretty butterfly on it, I'm sure.
Yeah, but they all do. But until you tell me that it was $100 or $120 a bottle, I'm like, no, $40 all day long.
I'm curious here to get the legend's opinion on this. Now that you're retired, you can give this.
Oh yeah, we get the unfettered opinion.
The unfettered opinion of things like this that are coming out, not necessarily even there, because there's a lot of people doing it, charging $150 to $300 bottles, less than 7 years old, just ridiculous. You've seen it happen. Everybody's increased prices. I'm curious what your take is on.
How about them Yankees? Oh gosh. Well, first thing I'm going to say, you said a Blue Run, right?
Blue Run.
You are correct, sir.
Didn't Rutledge, wasn't he involved with the first release of that?
He consulted. He was very vocal about distancing himself when they claimed how involved he was, and I think they overstated that he had something to do with it.
It was a virtual circus around that.
He was like, wait a minute.
I'm going to assume he was in on tasting the selections but whatever.
I think a lot of his recommendations got poo-pooed by someone.
Well,
It was a complete
that's
circus.
all you need to
It was
say.
a complete circus
I
over
think
there.
we're confusing different brands here.
No,
Confusing and conflating.
because it was being done at Castle and Key.
Oh, okay.
Well, look, my perspective on this is very, very different. But because when I came up in the industry, there was Old Crow sitting on the shelf in 1980, 81 for $6.99 for $7.50. This is probably 12-year-old bourbon.
Oh my.
God bless.
Oh my.
So, and that was the interesting thing. So, okay, if it's 4, 5, 6 years old, most people don't really understand the labeling or whatever, but when they come out and state it on the label, this stuff is 2 years old and they want $70, $80, $90 a bottle for it. Well, what can you say about that? That's just people that really don't know what they're drinking, as far as I'm concerned. They might as well be drinking paint thinner, because they wouldn't know a good bottle of whiskey if it was smacked them in the face. So, okay, that might be a little harsh, but
No,
not really.
No, not really.
So,
Yeah, it's early. We haven't really started drinking yet. Wait, just wait.
so again, I'm anxious to read the review. Look, I can't comment too much
So am I. That was so 1 week ago.
on Blue Run. The only time I've had it was on one of my last trips into Washington. I was at a restaurant and had some, and again, the main thing that turns me off is just tannic. If a brand is real tannic. Now, this particular bottle, don't remember if it was a special one or not. It was drinkable, but a little on the tannic side. It wasn't completely off-putting, but here's the bottom line on it. Who bought Blue Run? Coors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Known for flavor.
Well, they got to pay that investment off, is all I'm going to say.
Good luck.
All their money went into that label technology that turns blue when it's cold.
So, it's just a lot of stuff out there that's overpriced, and
All right.
probably some stuff that's underpriced.
So let's talk about this really well done.
Yeah, let's
old
talk about
whiskey.
this. So this is this year's King of Kentucky.
The nose on this one is
100
unbelievable.
This is 127 proof. And just real quick, this is a really geeky thing, but this bottle that they sent it to him in actually has milliliter marks on the side of it.
That one's going home with me. I love it.
That's really cool. But anyway,
what a great bottle.
The nose on this is
Yeah,
fantastic.
there's like sarsaparilla candy. Like there's
Just deep Luden's cherry.
Yeah.
I mean,
The alcohol comes through a little bit, but my God, the flavor on this is
we're supposed to drink it. I'm sorry.
so
I've
that
been
is,
sniffing it longer than
yeah. The nose is fantastic.
overpowering. The alcohol is not overpowering by any stretch. It's just a little prickly is all.
No, exactly.
But the flavor.
What's the
is
proof
just-
on this one?
127.
127.
And I've drank some of these in the past where it's strong on the nose like this, and it comes through in the palate. But this drinks much softer than the nose.
You really get your nose there, you get like a little bit of a cola note.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Flat cola.
Flat cola.
I love flat cola. Yeah, so this is the early times mash bill. Last time I mentioned that with Melissa Rift, who's the master taster at Old Forester. She said, we don't call it that anymore. I said, oh, yeah, that's right. They sold that. So that's 7812. How's the ad? 10. So, no, actually, this has less corn. So 72, 10, 18.
18 malted barley? Wow.
18 rye. No, I
18 rye.
was doing the math in my head. The journalist here, we're good at reading numbers, not making them. But I've always loved that mash bill.
Wow.
Just a huge rye character to it.
That's delicious.
That's fantastic.
17 years.
Yeah, that's probably worth $300 a bottle.
Well,
This is
that's the
17
price.
years old?
That's the price.
Yeah,
Yes, it is, sir. And we have a 15 that we can compare to it as it goes around.
And usually I don't gravitate towards the older stuff, but this one is.
Me too, Brent, because I'm not a big tannic person.
Nor am I.
I'm not big on dry finishes. Not you.
But not at all. But here's the thing. So the last 3 or 4 years I was working, I really got into barrel differentiation and the reason for it. And I got a great a presentation from Independent Stave that really gets into it, and it's so complex, but yet it's simple too. It's very complex and hard to explain. But if you get a honey barrel, if you get a barrel with slow growth staves, the rings are thinner. There's more sugar in it. There's more vanilla in it. So if you get a honey barrel, it can stay in barrel longer because it's got more sugar to it. So once the sugar runs out of that barrel, that's when it turns tannic. So if you've got just one of those exceptional barrels, then the other thing too is where it is in the warehouse. If it's on the bottom floor, cooler spot in the warehouse, it can age longer. So it's not always as simple as it seems.
Is this the new wood versus the old wood?
No.
Because you explained that once to me, and that really kind of put it in perspective. If you
get a hold of Independent Stave's information, there are more 100-year-old oak trees alive today than there was 100 years ago, because we're building houses from different things now where oak's not being used as much. So people want to, it's old, it's an old tree. Well, I don't know.
That's become even more topic of debate, and that's above my pay grade and thinking. But you probably got that presentation by Andrew Weirbrink, right?
I think this was, I don't know if his name's, I know who you're talking about. But the bottom line on it is it's about slow growth staves. They have more sugar. So there are two layers. Early growth in a ring is where all the sugar and vanilla is. The late growth is where all the tannin is. So it's a fast growth tree. Early growth is always very consistent. Late growth in the growing season is always the wild card. Is it slow or is it fast? So if it's fast, it's much thicker. So if you can imagine when you when you char a barrel, you're burning through layers of rings. So if it's a fast growth tree, you're burning through less layers of sugar and vanilla. Mm. If it's a slow growth stave, they're much thinner. You're doing that 1 minute burn to get that number 4 char or whatever barrel companies, what their terms are, their timing is. You're burning through more layers of sugar and vanilla.
Got it.
So you go from toffee, if there are a lot of sugar, you're burning through those layers, you're going to get a little more toffee. But every barrel is different. Every barrel typically is a mingling of slow growth and fast growth. But here's where the consistency comes in for Four Roses. 90% of our barrels come from the Ozarks. It's a slow growth area. So there are so Jeff LeHue told me, he said, Dan, there are always some trees that are there that are fast growth. So but the bottom line on it is when you're dumping a bunch of barrels together, the slow growth flavor out of that's going to come through. When you do a single barrel, you might get a barrel made primarily from one tree, a fast growth tree, which is primarily tannic. Y'all have had them before that at 5 or 6 years old, they're nothing but tannin. Well, the sugar has already come out of those barrels. As long as there's sugar in there, it can, Jim Rutledge always drew a bell curve. So that bourbon goes in, gets better, better, better. It gets to the top of that bell. Once the sugar is depleted out of that barrel, boom, flavor just starts falling off the table. So
you mentioned, slow growth trees in the Ozarks. That's not the only thing that grows slow in the Ozarks. Trust me.
And the question is, how many of those trees are related? But anyway,
that's right.
So Steve, you just passed around. Was this last year's King of Kentucky?
I don't know, Brent. Look at that.
What was the year in that one?
2023, maybe. Talk about some of the best press tastings I've ever had.
So that's 130 proof. This other one,
yes,
yeah,
right.
But
this is 130.6.
Oh, sorry, I forgot the 0.6.
It does not have the 0.6.
It should be on the front, Bob.
There's some that says 14 and 15. I don't know.
It says barrel number. It's 15-year-old, but it doesn't say the year.
All right, well, we'll just go with
my
last
guess
year.
is a couple years old. I think consistently those are some of the best whiskeys I get to taste every year. And you want to say to Brown-Forman to keep making more of this.
They saved us some.
They did?
Wait, that was the
whiff.
end. That was all of it.
That's it. That's okay. Don't worry.
They passed. I'm at the end. I figured that was here. Take some of this.
I got to drink the rest of that, so I'm okay sharing all that with you
Pour
guys.
some of that. I'm sorry.
And this is how the Bourbon and Banter Fight Club got started.
Yeah, I just
But we don't
poured it.
talk about Bourbon and Banter
Check
Fight
out
Club.
the nose in comparison.
But
It's not
it's a
even
real
close.
thing.
It's good, but it's not close.
Yeah. That
When you pass me the sample and I'm at the end and there's only a little bit left, just let me know that that's all there is.
Hey,
you're the guy at the buffet scraping the
here's
pan clean.
In a podcast, if you're talking too much and you miss the sample, that's on you.
I guess, but the bottle of it here.
It's fine. It's not a problem.
That's right.
So,
there's there's
Dan
more
mentioned, all right,
of other
Dan,
things.
Dan mentioned the bell curve.
Yeah,
that
the
Jim
bell
Rutledge
curve, right?
talked about. Like,
it's very erudite, but go
it
ahead.
is, but like, there's also not necessarily a wrong answer. Now, I may not be, my palate is not on the downturn, but there are plenty of people that love oak and the tannins and they want something really dry and tannic. It's not me, but there are plenty of people that chase that stuff and prefer it.
There's a group.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
It's called wrong. Yeah, it's
We hate to use stereotypes, but they're terribly accurate.
And convenient.
Convenient. That's right. Here's the thing. So I think back to the first 5 years of my bourbon journey, if you will. And one of my favorite bourbons back in the day was Elijah Craig 18. This was before they stopped it, right? And I loved it. And I remember, picking up bottles for $65, $70. And I loved it. And then it disappeared. And then they brought it back. Now I have a full bottle unopened from before. And then somebody gave me a pour of the new stuff. And I don't like it at all. I mean, my palate is really sensitive with oak. Once something gets above 13, 14 years, I absolutely will not buy a bottle unless I can try it, because these samples, these King of Kentuckys are great. It's everything that you get from old bourbon without the over oaked tanninness, right?
It's unreal that it's 17 years old and has no tannin.
Right. You try
it's not
16-year-old, Knob Creek, and it's so dry and dusty to me. I don't care for it. But this was delicious. I drink that all day. Right. So I'm curious, Brent, we'll start with you. What's a bourbon that you liked in the first half of your bourbon journey that you don't care for anymore because how your palate has changed? Or anybody, just chime in, because there's got to be at least one, right?
I got to think about that.
That's one for me. The other one is Woodford Reserve. I drink it, but it's nothing special now. And, don't try to convince me 200 flavors. That means you taste like nothing.
So my bourbon journey started
when you were 8?
No, I mean, I was like 11, I think.
Okay.
No, just kidding. It may have started under 21. I promise you that. But after college, stopped drinking like a lot of bad tequila and Captain Morgan's and Coke. And then it went to like Crown and Coke. And then it went to Jack, right? Jack and Coke. And then it got to the point where I cut out the soda and I was just drinking Jack on the rocks. And then it went to Jack Neat. And then when I would be fancy and in the mood for something nicer, it's like if I would go out to like a nice dinner, especially like with family and my parents and stuff, like I'd order Woodford Reserve. And that was kind of like my gateway bourbon. And then it got to the point where I started drinking stuff neat. And then it kind of went from there. So Woodford is one that I really started with, and I really don't go back to it. Not because I don't like it. I just like other stuff more. And that's not one that I really touch anymore at all.
I used to drink a lot of Old Number 7, and I'll have that now if I'm out of maple syrup. I'll put some on my pancakes, but Old Number 7, I don't do, but
yeah, right. But you're right.
I say this now, and as much as I love Four Roses, as much as I love turkey, to me, the best readily available American whiskey on the market are barrel strength Jack Daniel rye and Tennessee whiskeys.
And we're moving into those right now.
And I could not get enough of that.
Let's talk about that heritage.
Now the Heritage Barrel, now that was a total
what
other
a surprise.
thing. That was a completely other thing for me, for Jack. It was like somebody took and put a double oak on a double oak Woodford on steroids.
It's like somebody dissolved a marshmallow in it.
I haven't had that one.
Yeah,
Just read that. I'll bring the bottle for the
right.
For
You
the
just
Summit.
reviewed it, and you were like, I didn't know this existed, right?
Correct.
And when he told me about it, I didn't know, and I'm like, we write about this stuff, and like, how did this become a sleeper, right? That we didn't hear about it till second year in. I felt kind of like we were sleeping at the wheel. It's good. I mean, it's a little bit softer than I like, but it was very, very tasty. I mean, Bob, you delivered that bottle about a week and a half ago.
Is it
a
gone?
week ago? No, I got about half left. But
Holy cow. Stretch that, boys. Stretch that.
come on, I got to get some of whatever that is. Come
Yeah,
on.
that's the 14.
Oh, I haven't had the 14.
Yeah, they're stretching it. They're doing the right.
So
I thought there was more.
Now we're on to the Jack
It
Daniels.
was till Bob got it.
14th.
That's
Would
right.
you stop? Would you
All right.
stop?
I'll just give it, since I've gotten to have it and review it and tasted it last night.
All right,
What's the age? What's the
Here, dude.
Am I
proof on
killing that
Steve?
last half ounce? No, you're fine. That's fine.
What is the proof on that?
Let's see.
I got
It's like you squeezed a Q-tip.
I got Brented.
No, I didn't touch that. That
This
wasn't even.
is,
Bob's
this
got
is
all
14
of that.
years old, 126.3 proof.
See, the nose on this is absolutely
Is this the
phenomenal.
most? How recent was this one?
This year.
Okay,
Oh,
there was one last year, right?
Now,
A 14
what does that smell like? Brown Foreman whiskey. Good Brown Foreman whiskey. That big cherry Luden's note, that
It's in the
bubble
wheel,
gum,
it's-
acetone.
It's in the wheelhouse of that King of Kentucky.
Absolutely.
Well, that
No, it's not.
That one.
In
Yeah,
terms of
close.
It's in the wheelhouse.
attributes, yeah.
It's good. It
Yeah.
smells nice, but
I
it's
know. I know he didn't lay it down, but the stuff that Chris Fletcher has been pulling from Jack
Amen, brother.
Daniels since he took over there has been just absolutely phenomenal whiskey.
And you bring up something interesting here because, Steve and I several years ago got to sit down with Jeff Arnett. And when he retired, and he was telling the story about how the bean counters would always come in and say, you're only one bad quarter away from Jack Daniels peach or blackberry or whatever. And they wouldn't let him do anything cool and fun. And I love Chris. We first met Chris from a Bourbon and Banter perspective when he became the lead chemist at Buffalo Trace. So this was the same trip when we did the Bourbon and Banter pilgrimage. So 2012. And he is a talented individual. But the fact that Brown Foreman has taken off the limiters, so to speak, on him to let him run wild is fantastic.
Take that. I'll keep the bottle.
I'd be very interested to see what would have happened if they had taken those guide rails off while Jeff was there. And I feel a little bit bad that he didn't get to flex that muscle because he's a smart guy. When Steve and I sat down with him, he brought what was at the time the first ever 10-year-old single barrel Jack Daniels, because when he retired, they let him pick any barrel he wanted from the warehouse. So he went to his friend in the research department or whatever it was. They have a machine that is able to X-ray barrels to see how full they are. And he said, find me the most full 10-year-old single barrel we have in the warehouse. And that's what he got. And so he cracked one of those bottles over us. And that was like a very cool foreshadowing of all the stuff that we've gotten since then. What are we drinking now?
12-year.
Passing around the 12-year. This is
Oh,
also.
I may get some of that. That's pretty full still.
You're
that
talking
one-
about taking the limiters off?
Yeah, taking the limiters
I was
off.
thinking about it coming down. I wish somebody had taken off the limiters so we were drinking Four Roses rye whiskey right now too.
They're working on that.
So yeah, he's shaking his head because he's told me so
No,
many
they're
times. Rutledge wanted to
good.
put down rye whiskey
Right.
15 years ago, 20 years ago, and had they,
that's
it would
awesome.
have been. It would have.
But instead of putting down rye whiskey, they've put down more recipes.
Yeah, but rye recipes.
No.
2 rye recipes. No?
higher rye.
Higher rye.
Dan's going to set us
Oh
on.
man,
It's like you idiots.
They're hey, 7
I
years.
don't get
Shut up, you all.
excommunicated here.
7 years from now, according to when we were just there.
Yeah.
7 years from now, they're going to have 10 more
Dumbest
recipes
thing on the face
on the
of the
market.
earth, as far as I'm concerned. The simplest thing would have been to do rye, a rye whiskey. So if you look at how much rye that Bullet is selling, it's just insane. And now we're going to confuse people even more, is my take on it. So one of the last national sales meetings I went to, there were a couple of requests. Maybe we should do a wheated bourbon. No, we don't need to do wheated. Let's just do we've built our bourbon reputation on high rye. Just do a damned rye. And again, Rutledge wanted to do it 14, 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. And the thing is we were only running our distillery 6 months out of the year. So, in 2010, so there's, we got a little extra time here. Let's just keep the distillery open for another month or so and run some rye. And there's just absolutely no telling. It just makes me crazy.
Right. So now we're going to have 10 more recipes in the mix.
I'm not.
Mandy did not seem thrilled about that like a year ago when we did that pitch.
No, she's definitely hoping that doesn't become part of the single barrel program anytime soon.
Well,
it's a higher rye, but it's still a bourbon.
There are 5. What is it?
Two more new recipes.
They're just changing the percentage of rye and
right.
So what, like 40?
I have no idea.
It was high, whatever it was.
It's been
high.
It's
already 20 and 35.
It's been a year.
Read the show notes. We'll put the recipe in there because it's public knowledge. We just don't recall because we've been drinking.
No, they've had a big press release, so it's just I don't know.
I remember last year when we did that pick, Mandy told us about it. She's like, "Yeah, it's happening. It's two more.
It's happening. Absolutely." All right, so you just poured us. This is the Jack Daniel's 12.
I think I like the 12 better than the 14.
So Bob,
that is correct.
I like the palate on the 12
So
better.
Brent, just to clarify on the record, you like the 12-year-old better than a 14-year-old?
Didn't I just say that?
Okay, just
Is that why we were hearing sirens going off? Are they coming for you?
Pretty much.
Did someone else say that first?
No.
Then why are you
The
giving me shit
14
about
had a little bit of a hole in the palate to me towards the back. This is the 12 to me is richer, whatever.
I think so, but they're both missing the joke, Pops. They're both missing the joke.
I don't know what you...
He said you prefer the 12-year-old over the 14-year-old.
All right, if you got to explain the joke, it doesn't matter.
Do I need to go get...
I wasn't
We're gonna
thinking
be
in pedophile terms.
That's right.
What's wrong with you guys?
In this climate of Epstein files, we just got to
Seriously.
be careful.
You guys, so immature.
I do.
Usually,
like
I'm the one that's the
Yeah,
immature
you
one.
usually are the one
now
that's
it's you
completely
guys. Sorry.
immature.
I guess I'm the outlier here. I love the 14 better. I just richer,
I think
deeper.
I like the nose on the 14 more. I like the palate on the 12 more.
I think the
It's oily. It's a little bit oilier to me. Viscous.
I think there's more flavor to the 12 than the 14. The 14 was a little flatter to me.
All right, I'm gonna lasso this back to something constructive.
You started it.
No, absolutely, I'm fine with that. I can live with that.
For those who couldn't see it, Pops was lassoing like a
we got a
disco
camera
dancer.
right there.
There's a camera right there. But not everyone's going to watch us, right? Because faces and radio and
Because
all that
we've
kind of
got
thing.
faces
That's right.
made for radio. That's right.
Exactly. Every one of them.
So go back. Let's go all the way back to 2011 once again. Before any of you guys were involved with Bourbon and Banter. This, obviously, we were not super ahead of the curve, but we were definitely on the front end of the curve, right? There wasn't a ton of publications, things of that nature is out there. But as you have looked at how coverage has changed, we've got a lot of blogs, we've got podcasts, we've got influencers.
Yikes.
God bless. How were you consuming bourbon content? Like when you were trying to learn more, what were you doing to try to read and educate, and how has that changed?
I was reading everything I could, whether it was a print magazine, whether it was the internet searches, and that's kind of how I found Bourbon and Banter. And that's how I ended up being a contributor and being involved because I followed you guys and I read the content and the emails and the blog posts. It was in my like RSS feed,
Old school.
right? Old school, right?
Right.
And so I would have, content coming in from wherever I could find it. And then when you put the call out for new contributors, I responded, and that's how I got involved. But that's how I used to find stuff. I would just search around on the internet and wherever I could find it. I don't think I was on Facebook then. I was a very late adopter. I was kind of anti-Facebook and want to be part of that. Sure. I ended up having to do it for work purposes, but I still am not on it much. But anything I could find, news, articles, releases, whatever, that's just kind of how I consumed it search-wise.
Bob?
I did the same. I learned a lot of it from following you all when I got more into it. So, because I came in after the initial wave of contributors. So I was reading everything, but I could also tell who was full of shit and who wasn't. And also, presentation is key. And the thing that I remember telling Pops when I first met him, because I met him a couple of years before I joined the team, was that there was always a sleekness, and a professional quality to what Bourbon and Banter did over a lot of these other whiskey websites and things. And that gave more credibility to this, for me, to the stuff that was coming out of this team.
I think the honesty really was transparent, like, readily visible with Bourbon and Banter. Like, you could, like Bob said, you could be reading other stuff and you could tell when it's a fancy article in Wine Spectator or like something, not necessarily Wine Spectator, but something like that, that you could tell it was paid for.
Gotcha. How about you, Steve?
I was lucky. I'm in Kentucky. I get to go to press events and I get to meet master distillers and everybody connected to them. I don't remember reading anything else. I was interviewing people constantly, and a lot of my whiskey writing peers were there to share information too. And it's such a friendly industry. You just get to ask questions, and people just don't shut up. They tell you exactly what they're doing, why they're doing it. And even today at Potter Jane Distillery, which we're going to on Friday, that Danny Potter would explain all of these things, that Jane Bowie would explain all these things to us. That's how I learned, was directly from the professionals. I don't remember following any podcast or any magazine in particular because there wasn't a ton of it at the beginning. Bourbon Plus was the first one to really get into it. Chuck Cowdery's newsletter was great to get into if you wanted history. But I only found that out much, much later in my journey. But I was lucky. I got to talk to people at the source.
Well, that's the cool thing about it. Like, we're in the Midwest. People are friendly, right? It's not like a big city or the East Coast and where people are a little more aggressive towards each other and less friendly. But it's also bourbon. People want to talk about it. If you really like it, people want to discuss it. And it's very approachable.
Absolutely. So, Dan, I'm curious from your perspective, someone who was in the industry, and what did you like? So in terms of coverage, when people talk about brands, what did you prefer? And more importantly, I think to make this a little bit more interesting is, what didn't you like?
Oh, gosh. I guess what I don't like the most is marketing departments that want to sanitize everything. And they want to, I think, dumb it down to the nth degree. So it's, if you want to do real educational things, it's not always easy. So I kind of changed my focus a little bit. I'm a completist. I want to tell the whole story. But when you're in front of 30 or 40 people, you've got an hour, maybe an hour and a half. I learned over the years that you can't tell the whole story. You've just got to pick out one or two, maybe 3 points that you want to drive home and pray to God that half the crowd leaves with it. So that's been my thing. I guess the biggest mistake that I made was thinking that bourbon companies' marketing departments were wanting to tell the truth.
Well, that's kind of the thing. Like, you can tell when we were talking about how you consume some of this information, how you started. If you're really into this and you really like bourbon and you're interested in learning more and you read some of these articles, you can tell very quickly when you read, whether it's an article or a listicle or whatever you want to call it, or an actual like opinion from someone that's being honest. When you go out and try it compared to what they say in the article, if they have this glowing review and if it's paid for, and then you go try it and you're like, this isn't very good. And you do that a few times and you're like, maybe these articles are full of shit. And then you read something where people are being a little more honest and truthful. And then you go try those comparatively and they're like, they said this one was bad, and you try it, and like, yeah, I don't like this very much. And they said this one was good, and you're like, oh, yeah, they were right. And then you do that a few times. That's one of the reasons why I gravitated towards Bourbon and Banter, because they were honest. Like, this one wasn't good. This is why. This one was really good. You should try it. And then there's multiple contributors.
Yeah.
And you can this is kind of how we marketed it at the beginning. Like, oh, if you like Elijah Craig and you like whatever else, and that aligns with your palate, then maybe you should follow this contributor a little more than that contributor that likes stuff that you don't like.
Find the person's whose palate aligns with yours. So if you like my stuff, great. If you like Brent's stuff, you like Steve's, you like Bob's, find someone. And that's what I tell people all the time is find a palate that matches. Now, that's when it comes to reviews. Now, we've gotten to this age of influencers now, right? And, I think, whenever I think about influencers, because, I work with a lot of PR firms and people reaching out to us, and they still consider Bourbon and Banter traditional media, right? We're not in the influencer category, and I'm too old to be.
We're all too ugly for that job.
Well, no, ugly is not a limitator.
No.
Let me tell you.
I'll drink to that.
And I'll be honest with you. I mean, Bob and I, pound for pound, if we wanted to put our boobs up front, we could. We could definitely do that. But when you think about the content, we should not. That's absolutely right. But when you talk about the content and the stupidity of contents that out there, I just can't bring myself to do it. Right? I'm not putting whiskey in my lawnmower to see if it fucking starts.
Or chugging a bottle of King of Kentucky, right? Just for clicks.
Oh my God, that's such good whiskey. Why would the fuck would you do that?
It's just assholes.
Has that been done?
I'm sure. For sure people do that.
People are doing
I'm chugging a Blanton's, or I'm pouring a bottle of Blanton's down the drain, or I'm pouring a bottle of Pappy down the drain just for clicks. Like, okay, fine. Like, whatever.
You know what those people influence me to do is to
not watch
to put my phone down. Yeah, put it away. Yeah.
That's right. Influencers making you drink the actual whiskey.
They're just doing it for clicks. It's just for money.
They remind me of the continued stupidification.
Dance, monkey, dance. That's okay. Great. A bunch of people watch you pour a bottle down the drain.
Being that we're recording this close to Halloween time, and you talking about us having faces for radio. My parents used to take me out trick or treating, but people would they would use me to scare all the crows away. And
I don't know what you're talking about. Faces for radio. I look good.
Well. His eyesight's been going too.
I'm getting older.
That's right.
Do you own a mirror?
I went into every morning I've been getting up. I've been experiencing a lot of nausea lately. I would get up in the morning. I'd go and look at myself in the mirror and I'd get myself together. I'd want to throw up. I went to my doctor. I said, Doc, what's wrong? He said, I don't know, but your eyesight's perfect. So I don't.
I know your doctor.
You know my doctor. Dr. Vinny Boombots. You know my doctor. He had 6 cases of VD last week. He's okay now, but last week it was rough.
That's right.
So just for viewers,
we definitely got sidetracked.
So what are we drinking?
So for the tens of viewers that we're going to get from this, this is a Heaven Hill Insiders bottle.
What does that mean?
What that is, there's a small press group, I don't know, maybe 20 of us, that they send samples to get our feedback on it. Now, whether they pay attention to a thing we say, I don't know. But this was one that came, I think, this year or last year. It is a 14-and-a-half-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon that says extra aged. I don't know what the verbiage, behind extra age means, because they've had plenty of many. 40 years old. Yeah, I mean, so they've had a 27-year-old, for heaven's sakes. So this is 127.9, and that's that. But
this is one of those ones you'll never see. It's press only, right?
Insiders only.
I mean, just a handful of
influencer.
So yeah, right. Influencer. That's right.
Yeah, you can watch Steve drinking this on his TikTok.
OnlyFans. Yeah,
I bet you probably could do an OnlyFans.
The
like
only
just
fan
drinking bourbon
would be my wife. But it's interesting that they let us taste this stuff.
I'm not even
That's
going.
right. That's right. Yeah, we'll leave it there.
And that's how Steve got divorced.
Yeah.
She's not going to hear this, is she?
Closed circuit.
That's right.
For sure.
We'll just let Steve keep drinking there.
So at any rate, it's remarkably light compared to the others that we had in this session in terms of
it's good to hydrate.
Mouthfeel, a lot of light spice, nothing overly dark. Like that 15-year King of Kentucky is the most comparable, I would guess, and the 14-year-old Jack Daniels. Can't touch it in terms of mouthfeel, weight, or complexity.
I really like this. This, just to sit and sip. The others to me were cigar bourbons. That dark tobacco, I call it. They can hold up. This is just sit around the house sipping. This is I really, really like this. And proof on this is what?
127.9.
Jeez. Can't tell it.
See, Dan said cigar bourbon. I think all bourbon is cigar bourbon.
And so
now some stand up better than others. I know what you're saying.
This is a Tiparillo bourbon,
but not a Habana.
But
no. So this is delicious.
Let's go there for a second. I mean, a lot of people, right, will tell you that you need a bold bourbon with a bold cigar, and I'm kind of on the mindset of like, well, I don't think that's true. I think you can go with a light bourbon with a bold cigar. They don't have to be identical. In fact, you want to complement them. So,
I'm not a cigar guy, so I'm going to take your.
So we're just going to ignore you.
Yeah. No,
me as well. We'll shut up now, Dan.
Yeah, you do not either. Yeah.
I don't think there's necessarily a perfect pairing.
But I don't want something. If I got a bold cigar, I don't want a bold bourbon overcharge the cigar. You know what I'm saying, or vice versa. I want them to complement them.
I never really think about that, and I've smoked a lot of cigars over the years, and I find a cigar that I'm in the mood for, and then I just find a bourbon that I want to drink, and I don't really think about pairing them, but sometimes they're stronger, and normally during, like if I sit down, I'm having a cigar and I'm having a bourbon, right? Normally the way I drink bourbon is I will start off higher proof, and then I will step it down throughout the evening. I like to go from a drink or two and then switch the bottle, and then go to another drink or two and then switch the bottle. And that's how I kind of get some mileage out of my bourbons. I don't like to sit down at one time and drink all from one bottle. Because then especially if it's one that I really like, then you have none left for next time.
I'm totally with you. Drinking for ADD. Isn't it fun to just sample just a little bit?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Of a glass of this one, like a start off like the evening with something really nice.
Half ounce here, half ounce there. Yeah.
Or even an ounce or 2 ounces, whatever it is, and then move bottles and go to something different.
Well, that's the beauty of a bottle share, right?
That's absolutely right. And this is even better because now you're going through all kinds of fancy stuff. I think everything I've had tonight I haven't had before.
There has to be a marketing tag or a T-shirt or something, drinking for ADD. That we have got to trademark that. There's got to be a way we can do that.
Is that like a charity event, or is that just?
Now, once again, you do have the guy.
It's a fundraiser.
The YouTube channel, right? The ADHD bourbon guy. So
what?
No, I'm not hip.
Yeah,
We're
I don't know
under
about
that
that either.
But you know, if I don't smoke a lot of cigars, I usually when I'm with you all, which is once, maybe twice a year.
You're welcome.
Your weekend's about to change.
Yeah,
that'll drive a human to
if
smoking.
if I'm at home and I'm having a cigar I always reach for the same bottle,
You're gonna have nicotine withdrawal on
and
Sunday evening.
I always reach for OGD 114.
Well, now you got some.
That's my cigar.
Now you got a few.
I've
bottles.
always got some.
Well, you got a lot more now.
Yeah.
All right, Dan, what's your take on that? That bottle.
OGD. I go back to 1980 when I started. They had National had just launched that in 1979. So I go back from not day one, but pretty goddamn close. It's always been right at one of the top 10 for me. Absolutely.
And those ND bottles are absolutely outstanding. Espresso, bitter chocolate bombs that are just freaking amazing.
I've never had one.
You've never had a National?
I would so badly want one, and I've never had one.
It's good stuff.
Here's
So
the thing,
out there, if any of you listening to this want to send some of that, with We haven't
Send Bob
asked.
a
We haven't
sample,
asked
he'll make
for
it worthwhile.
our boxes of Monster cereal yet this season, but yeah, send that
Yeah.
too.
I just saw it
Here's
the
the
other day.
thing
I thought
you've
it-
got to understand about national distillers is that they couldn't give it away. Old Crow, old Granddad, old Taylor. So when Beam bought them out in 1988, I guess it was 89 before it officially went through, Beam bought National for De Kuyper cordials and Gilby's gin and vodka. They wanted to get in the cordial and gin and vodka business.
Anything but bourbon business, right?
Absolutely. They didn't need bourbon. Bourbon was, at that
crazy.
point, was still going downhill. Probably by 88, it had kind of, there was a little bit of uptick because of the Japanese market. So Beam didn't know what to do with all that bourbon. So that was the impetus for the small batch collection. If you find an original bottle of Basil Hayden, of course, he was the proprietor of Old Granddad, you find it on that shoulder label, we called it, it would say, this is an extremely high rye bourbon. Now, for several years, that went away, and then they brought it back. But the original stuff was Old Granddad. The Bakers, Booker's was always Beam. Booker was still in charge at that point, or I don't know if he was in charge, but he swung a big bat. But the Basil, Bakers, and Knob Creek, what I was told directly by Tom Johnson, who was a friggin' legend. God was with Beam for 27 years. We started out together at Kentucky Wine and Spirits. He started much earlier than I did with other companies, but he just flat out told me that's National Distillers Whiskeys. And so, I'd love to get my hands on an original bottle of the Basil Hayden, because the stuff I've had with this rice in the friggin' mash bill was just friggin' undrinkable as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, well, you've got, I think it was coming up on a holiday time, they wanted to have the Basil Hayden Advent calendar. So now you can do it because you got 12 different varieties, of which 11 nobody wants.
So what people ask you, what's your favorite bourbon? One of the best I ever had in my life was when they invited a press group down to taste Little Book 3. And Little Book 3 was a blend of cask strength samples of the small batch collection, Booker's, Basil, Baker's, and Knob Creek. And so we tasted Basil Hayden's out of the barrel at 117 proof. And you're listening to a press person right now and you think, does that guy ever shut up? All 10 of us were silent. And then all of a sudden, like a bunch of chirping birds looking for a worm. Why is this in the barrel? Who was it in the bottle? Why is it in the bottle? This is the best. Blah, blah, blah. They're like, it wouldn't be Basil Hayden's if it was at barrel proof. And we shut up for about 3 seconds more. It's like, but it'd be the best Basil Hayden's ever. And of course, Fred and Freddie were like, oh, but it wouldn't be Basil Hayden's because it's got to be 80 proof. We're like, what a shame. It was out freaking standing at 117 proof.
Marketers it can only be 80 proof. We were talking about Jack Daniels earlier, not turning that guy loose. Oh, we can't do that because we've never done it before.
Right,
Well,
exactly.
Do it. Do it.
No.
Exactly.
God knows I don't. It just drives me friggin' nuts.
I'll go back to national distributors because when I first started getting into bourbon, early in my bourbon journey, I met a group of guys in St. Louis, and we had a Facebook message thread. So I call it the Facebook group. And they invited me to some of my first bottle shares before I knew what a bottle share was. And they all were dusty hunters. They collected dusty bourbons, and I'd show up. And the best thing I could bring was bottle blends, right? So I got a lot of education, but some of the best pours I ever had were national distributor source bottles, right?
Yeah.
So Old Charter Proprietor's Reserve goes down as one of my favorite pours ever. But one of the coolest things,
That
one of
was
the guys,
UD, Old Charter.
on United Distillers.
Yeah.
Okay. But one of the guys, what he did was he created, gave us flasks with the UPC code of the distillery, and gave it to us. And so when we came to the party, he said, fill the flask with whatever you want from my collection, from national distributors. I want to talk about this a little bit about this old stuff. I've never been someone that's collected old stuff. I've stumbled into it, right? I've got some great stuff. I've got stuff pre-prohibition. I've got stuff from 40s and 30s and whatnot, but I've never chased it. And obviously, there's been a lot of people that are out there, but we talk about the old bourbon. And Dan, you have this fantastic story about a very special Van Winkle bottle that you had in storage.
You're gonna get the mic handed to you for this,
and how it disappeared. You want to give us a condensed version of that?
Oh God,
I've repeated this story.
My son famous.
The mercy of a parent.
Yeah. Look, again, I'd mentioned Kentucky Wine and Spirits. We were the distributor for Van Winkle. So I pushed Van Winkle. It was very difficult back then. And one of the main reasons Ken Lewis, his liquor store, Julian had a good relationship with Ken. This is early on. This is 1980. So when Ken's moving his old store down in the west end of Louisville over to the new big Jefferson Street store, as I call it. That's 45 friggin' years ago, goddamn. He had Julian's full line. So, okay, that made an impression on me. I need to take care of Ken. So he and Julian. So anyway, Julian calls me up in 1988 and says, Dan, I've got some of the last whiskey my dad. It's going to be long, guys. I'm sorry. I've had a couple of pops, and it's the only way I know how to tell it.
No, this is, we're here for it.
That's a proverbial. Make it short.
And if you're listening or watching, you should be here too.
So Julian says, I've got some of the last whiskey my dad distilled before we sold the distillery in 72. I've got two versions. I've got a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. So they apparently dumped some before a couple of years earlier. So I said, do you want any of it? Sure, I'll take 10 cases each. So about a month later, I get a call from Julian. He says, Dan, how much of that family reserve do you have left? I'm thinking, something in his voice I know is not right. I said, so I look it up on the computer. And I said, Julian, we've got, less than a case each. Why? Is something wrong? He said, well, you apparently have some bottles on the back bar at Cafe Metro. He said, Bill Samuels was in there last night. He wasn't real happy about it, about that red wax seal. So if you don't know the red wax seal story, the Samuels family never applied for a federal trademark. This is my understanding, for the red wax seal. So when you drove around Louisville, and you saw Maker's Mark billboards, you never saw Maker's Mark. The only thing you saw was the red wax. Mm-hmm. So there was one billboard in particular that stands out to me, and that was a bottle of Maker's, floating over an iceberg. Now the bottle was twisted so you couldn't see the Maker's Mark on it, so you could just see the red wax, and on the iceberg were a bunch of penguins. So I'm with Rich Barbiero. He was with 21 Brands, St. Louis boy. His brother works for, I'll think of him in a minute. He said, what the hell is that? I said, well, it's just the latest Maker's Mark billboard. Oh, what does it mean? Well, it's pretty obvious to anybody in Kentucky. That's Maker's over ice. So anyway, I bought a case of the 14-year-old. I don't remember drinking a drop of it, to be quite honest. So I know I'm down to 4 bottles. So I give a bottle to Bourbon's Bistro on Frankfort Avenue when they open up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then I give them another one on their 5th anniversary. So that leaves me 2. And I can't remember anyway, I get down to 1. So I meet a guy, Tim Bible, a dentist in Knoxville. He's a big collector. He collected all our stuff. He finds out I know Julian. So he's coming up. Can you get Julian to sign my bottles? Can you set up lunch? Well, sure. So I called Julian up and I say, Julian, if you meet us for lunch, I've got a bottle of that 1988 Family Reserve and I'll give it to you. So just deathly silence for, it seemed like a minute. It was probably 5 seconds. He said, you talking about the red wax stuff? I said, yeah. That's damn good bourbon. He said, if you bring that, I'll bring you a bottle of 20-year-old, or he might have said 23. I said, okay. Now this is 2009, 2010. I'm still in the weeds, guys. It's just bourbon. Nobody understands
so
what's
you went
going
into
on.
the basement to get the bottle?
I went into the basement to get the bottle, and it's not there. Well, crap. I've got a thing upstairs. I got a bunch of stuff in and go up there and look through it, and God damn, that's gone. It's not up here either. So finally the light bulb goes off over my head. So my son had graduated from Colgate, moved back into the basement bedroom. So I walked downstairs and I said, Alex, did you get that bottle of Van Winkle bourbon out of the wine rack there? He said, yeah. Okay. Did you drink it? He said, yeah. Was it good? Yeah, it's pretty good. And I screwed up the Tim Bible portion of it. He said, well, a friend of mine just told me he saw a bottle go on eBay the other day for $1,200. That was in 2009. They were still doing it. 2010.
But your son, being a recent college graduate, he didn't drink it neat, did he?
Well, I just looked at him and said, I hope you enjoyed it in that 2 liter of Coke you poured it into. Just turned around and walked away. So the only joy I got out of that bottle was seeing the color drain from his face. And I think those bottles, the last I heard, somebody quoted that last bottle he saw went for about 10 grand of that red wax stuff. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Was that a Cordy Brothers as well? No, that was a maroon wax, if I'm not mistaken.
No, it wasn't Cordy. It wasn't Cordy. Now, here's the thing. Gordy Hugh.
From Chicago.
No, Cincinnati or Northern Kentucky. I-75 cork and bottle. Brian Hugh. He was running the store. So Gordy was gray marketing crap, selling Budweiser. He was buying any and everything, and he could. So he had an export license, and Julian. So he bought a bunch of that 1988 Family Reserve. So there was a big lawsuit over that after the family had to sell. And I forget the family that they sold to. God, I worked with them for 25 years.
Norton?
What?
Norton?
No, I'll think of it. So anyway, they had a whole stash of that. So when they sold the store, there was some controversy over that because they had a bunch of that stuff in the basement. So, but Cordy Brothers, I'm very familiar with them, California grocers, and so I would get their catalog every year. So I'm very, very familiar with that. So Julian sold them a lot of stuff, absolutely. And God, what's the biker bar up in Chicago?
Twisted Spoke.
Twisted Spoke.
They just closed.
I had some Twisted Spoke Van Winkle at one time. I had 5 or 6 bottles of that. I kicked myself in the rear end for whatever happened to it. I don't know.
So if people want to hear more
Fantastic.
about some of the Van Winkle backstory, we have a great post on our site from one of our former contributors. What was it called? Something like the greatest story you've never heard, whatever. But I'll link it in the show notes. Check it out. Give you a lot of backstory in the Van Winkle. But we've been going on and on here now. We're getting into about an hour 24. So I want to kind of wrap us up with a kind of a very pointed question. And so I want to, each one of the folks who have been involved with Bourbon and Banter, what is your favorite memory of your time with Bourbon and Banter? And I'm going to let Brent start.
Oh man, you just put me on the spot.
Absolutely. And in the meantime, we're passing around a Parker's Heritage rye.
So this is a 10-year-old rye that was put into a Char 5 cask. Very rare. You know, the story was it was barely holding itself together, but it's fantastic. I love it. So it's a rye. It would be the Heaven Hill mash bill or the Rittenhouse rye mash bill of a Kentucky rye, like 51% rye, the rest corn. Well, they always use 12% malted barley, so do the math. What's that, 63 or 73? So you got, 27 of corn.
All right.
Check the journalist's math.
All right. So favorite bourbon and
could be
dinner.
funny moment, could be poignant moment. We don't have a lot of serious moments.
It had to be when I met Bob. And it was the Sumo Squat story.
He's serious about this. I thought he was teeing Bob up.
No. Bob was teeing me up, to be honest.
Story. Go ahead, tell it. We've never actually told this on
You
the
just got to
air.
condense
Just
it a
tell
little bit.
I'm going to try to condense it. So we meet like quickly-ish. It might have been the Constant Gardner pick. We met in Louisville. There were 4 of us, but 4 Roses paid for 3 rooms. So I'd never met Bob before. I'd met Pops. Jim was also on the trip. Grandpa Jim's coming. I think he arrives tomorrow. So I think the way it worked out was Bob and Pops, since they knew each other, both from St. Louis, were sharing a room. I got my own room. Jim got his own room because we don't want to stay with strange adults, right? And we timed it. Pops and I timed it that we met at the hotel. I think we were staying at the Brown, maybe.
Yeah.
About the same time. And
4 Roses got you guys rooms at the Brown?
Oh yeah.
Wow, things changed.
We were fancy back then, right? Now they're like, come in, get out, whatever, right? So we happened to pull in the parking lot. I was like unpacking my car, and like
Dan's like, I get
Pops
Motel
pulls
6,
in at
right?
the same time, and these 2 big dudes roll out of this car, and I'd never met Bob before. Bob's, I think, wearing like his Dodger blue sweatpants. And he's got like a box fan and his duffel bag with his clothes. And then there's a bag for the CPAP machine. And then there's and then they've got another like rolling suitcase. He's got like his fancy 4 Roses, like rolling bag with like 6 bottles in it, right? So yeah, that was probably a gift from someone really generous and nice. And someone you knew.
It was a gift from this guy here.
This was DG.
And I'm like, oh man, these guys are all right. This is the first time we've really gotten to do this. And let's see how this goes, right? So we got settled. We get to our rooms, and Jim hadn't been there yet, and so the 3 of us are there. And Pop says, "Come on up to our room. We're going to do a little bottle share up in the room." And I'm like, "All right." But again, like the first time I met Bob ever, and was in the parking lot just now a minute ago, and we really didn't have FaceTime and Zoom capability.
No, it's pre-COVID.
It's pre-COVID. We weren't really onto that stuff. So we'd all just traded messages on Slack or whatever, right? So we get up to the room, we throw our stuff down, and we go into Bob and Pops' room. And it's a small room in the Brown. The Brown doesn't have huge rooms, and there's 2 queen beds in there. And we're sitting on the bed, on the end of the beds, and they break out. There's like 12 bottles, and I'm like, all right, we're in bottle share time. Let's start drinking. We're having stuff and we're having a couple drinks, and Jim's not there yet. And Bob says, I'm sorry. He looks at me. He's like, I got to take a shit. And I'm like, what? I'm like, I just got here. Like,
pleased to meet you.
Come on, man. Right? Like this room is not very big, right? This is a small room, right? And I'm like right in front of the bathroom at the end of the bed. I'm like, how about this? I'm like, don't we have Jim's key? I'm like, go down here, take this key, go to Jim's room, leave Jim a present and leave it there, right? Go down there and do that. Like, don't do it in here, right? And he goes, no, I can't do that because I do this sumo squat. I'm like, and I look at him and I'm like, what in the fuck are you talking about? And I look at Pops because I'd never met Bob before. And Bob's just dead serious. He's in the bit, right? And I look at Pops like, is he fucking with me? And Pops doesn't break, and Pops just looks at me like, shrugs his head. He's like, I don't know what he's doing. And I'm like, all right, I'll play along. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, I do this thing. If you've never met Bob or seen Bob in person, he's slimmed down a bit, but Bob is a person of size,
stout stock,
large dude.
I'm a very large. At the time, I was probably somewhere around 330 to 350 pounds.
I'm going to claim bullshit. I'm going to add a little more to that.
Okay, I was closer to 370 then probably. All right.
I'm going to take the over. Love you, but I'm going to take the over.
Anyway, the attempt to make this brief has failed.
Yeah, I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I'm
The
detailed,
story's
right?
worth it.
So I'm looking at him and I'm like, all right, you have to tell me what this is because I don't know. You have to explain it. And Bob goes, all right, well, I'll show you. And he walks into the bathroom and he grabs a bath towel. And I'm like, what is going on? He goes, since I'm larger, I don't usually fit on toilets, especially in hotels because they're usually pretty narrow and there's not a lot of room. So I'm like, all right, so what do you do? And so he like takes this towel and like, waves it out and like sets it on the floor.
But not in the bathroom, out in the little,
Correct. Out
the
in the
vanity
little
area,
like right before
area.
you walk in the bathroom. It's like right in the middle of the hotel room, but it's a small hotel room. So he's like standing in front of me. I'm like, all right, show me what you do. And he's like, well, it's kind of hard because normally the walls are closer together. I can brace myself on the wall. So he like puts his hands out, right, and like spreads his legs and like kind of squats over like a sumo wrestler. And he's like, well, I take my clothes off. So I'm like, so are you like, I'm like, are you full naked when you do this? He goes, oh, for sure. And I'm like, so what? I'm like, you just like squat over the towel and just, defecate, like let it fly. And he's like, well, yeah. And he's like, I'm like, and you brace yourself against the wall. I'm like, and so now I'm like fully committed to like letting him go through this whole deal. I'm like, you need to show me. I'm like, so here, walk me in the bathroom and show me what you would do here. And he like brings the towel in and like lays it on the floor, like puts his arms against the wall and like kind of bends his legs and bends over. I'm like, all right, so you do your business on the towel. He's like, oh, absolutely. I don't fit on that toilet. The toilets won't support me. I don't trust them in these hotels. These are older hotels. I don't know, how. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm like, so then what? He goes, well, what do you mean? I go, well, what do you do with it after you shit on the towel in this hotel room? And he goes, oh, that's easy. He goes, I put my clothes back on. I wipe it, I flush that, put my clothes back on. I wad up the towel and I walk down the hallway and I put it in front of someone's door and I walk away. And I let him go through this whole bit.
Oh my God. It was priceless.
And finally he was like, I'm just fucking with you. But so the Sumo Squad has become this thing. And at this, like, Bob is a national treasure. I've said it before. Like, he comes off pretty gruff, but he is the best fucking guy ever. Like,
and the best thing was, in the next day we go to Four Roses to do the pick, and we're like, hey, Bob, why don't you do a sumo squat in front of the barrels? And so we get this photo. And then last year Bob couldn't make it to the summit. 2 years ago, Bob. 2 years
ago, I wasn't going to come.
He wasn't going to come, so I made a life-size cutout of Bob doing the sumo squat, and
it's not quite life-size, but it's pretty good.
It's pretty close, and that now has been in my basement. It's now in the Bourbon Banter headquarters, and every time somebody comes in, they turn and they see that by the front door, and they shit themselves, which is kind of ironic.
Yeah. Yes. So I guess. So my favorite thing, or my best memory, was Bob's story, but probably my favorite thing, and I'm thankful for being a part of Bourbon and Banter and everything that we've been able to do together and all the connections that we've made. But my friendship with Bob is up there.
All right, Bob, your turn.
I don't know how I come after that. I'm not somebody who takes compliments well. I am touched.
All right, you're a complete douche, but what's your favorite story?
Thank you very much.
Basically, and we don't hand them out well, or commonly.
These moments, these summit moments, when we're all able together, whether we're here, we're in Indianapolis, whatever we're doing, these are the moments that I truly enjoy, is being able to just sit and hang and converse. I'm trying to remember when my first King David dog moment was, when I actually finally got one of those hot dogs and just went crazy. But yes, it is these moments. That barrel pick was very special. That was my first one. It was a brand that I was very, very fond of. We conceived of the label on the way down to pay tribute to you. And you were able to join us on there.
And he's pointing to Dan Gardner, by the way.
And I'm pointing to Dan.
This is when we were allowed to still do labels on Four Roses bottles.
Well, but that was a hell of a lay. That was a hell of a
good one.
Yeah. It was a good one. It was a good one. But yeah, it's these moments. I mean, I love doing the podcast as well. I mean, we've had some very fun moments. We did one episode. We did an April Fool's episode where every story was bullshit. Where we fabricated everything.
That was great.
Wait a minute.
That was
no.
fun. There was one real story.
We would never do that.
Hey, so folks, that's also been a lot of fun, is doing these things and then having people react the way that they do.
Not only react, but like gain tremendous traction where distilleries and brands are getting phone calls and and reaching out to us to like basically cease and desist. Just
imagine if they'd reach out to us for true
right.
Like,
folks, we're just trying to have a little fun over here. We
can use this power for good. They don't want it.
This is the thing.
Yeah, every once in a while.
Everybody's so serious. Everybody's all, we're just trying to have a little fun. So we try to do that from time to time.
All right. Fair enough. How about you, Steve?
I don't want to sound too schmaltzy, but when you and I met on that trip, we had a lot of fun just talking about how bourbon content could be so much better.
Yeah.
So we got on board together. Later that evening or the next night, we tasted the worst bourbon we've ever tasted. A 45-year-old bourbon that tasted
Bloody Thompson. Final last reserve?
At best, last. Thank God it was the last.
Oh,
turpentine and prunes.
That hurts just to hear about it.
Those are the tasting notes. But still, one of my favorites is when Brent and I, we'd already established that we tend to be polar opposites on what we like and what we taste. But it's fun. We give each other crap, but we respect each other or what we like.
Our palates are different.
And we were doing a Four Roses pick, and it was down to the final blind pick, and he and I both defected on our choices.
Yeah, we're down to the final two.
And I flipped.
You were
and he
with A,
flipped.
and I was with B, and we blinded him. And you picked B, and I picked A.
Mandy did the blind.
Yeah,
Mandy did the blind, and we flipped. Yep. We're like, wow, we're idiots.
I love that.
yeah, absolutely.
And we were like arguing. We were fighting about it. We were not.
And that's the beauty. If you never get to go on a Four Roses pick, find a way to get on it, because it's not only phenomenal that you get to taste 10 barrels and 10 different recipes, but you have to screw with your friends. You've got to argue your point, even if you don't believe in that barrel. Argue your point just to mess it up and have fun with people.
I've got a way for you to get on a Four Roses pick. If you become a member of the Bourbon and Banter community.
That is correct.
You've been lucky enough to do a Four Roses pick every year.
And you win a lottery.
We take guests.
That's right.
Every year.
Just go to bourbonbanter.com/community, sign up, and all our our drinking class members, which are our paid members, have an opportunity to enter that for a barrel pick.
4 members last year.
That's right.
Hadn't been
and Steve, I just want you to know, I played your role today with our 1792 pick.
Oh, did you defect?
I did, and and unfortunately gave Brent a win.
I didn't win. I didn't win at Four Roses
this last
September,
time.
but I won.
You picked a Q.
But I won today.
You. They picked a Q.
It wasn't me,
Dan. They picked a Q.
We picked a good barrel.
I love a Q.
We picked a good barrel. It just wasn't my favorite one, but we picked a good barrel.
Hey, Dan, what's your favorite bourbon and banter moment?
My favorite
bourbon and banter moment.
When we leave, right? Just get the hell out of the distillery.
When we kissed your ass with the bottle, or
well, that didn't hurt.
Wow.
Has anybody else from Four Roses gotten their face on it?
It didn't hurt, but it didn't impress, obviously.
That's actually my biggest disappointment, that I wasn't able to make it. And I think I was in St. Louis. I'd already set something up. Either St. Louis or Nashville was primary markets that I would go to, but I had already had something set up. And I think it was actually, y'all were coming here and I went to friggin' St. Louis.
Yeah, possible.
So, I love that. That's OBSV tier 6.
Yeah.
And
we have a thing for those OBSVs.
That's the interesting thing about our recipes. I'm not going to get into that, but I did notice in this.
And that LESB that we're passing around?
That OESV.
Is that this year's?
This is the LESB from 2025.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
right.
that,
Which is, yeah.
Has everybody had this yet?
Which is back to the
pour some.
core of the recipe.
well, that OESV is such an interesting recipe, and that's why you can never. These are like cocktails, to be quite honest. So OESV, it's the 20% rye mash bill. You're right. V yeast strain, which is lighter. Mm-hmm. So that's the way you've got to think about these things, is that it, for whatever reason, that just works for younger whiskeys, older whiskeys. It doesn't make any difference what tier it was. That the OESVs from about 3 or 4 years ago, I forget the P Warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
P?
Every one was spectacular.
Out of P?
Out of P Warehouse.
Were those the ones we kept picking?
I don't think so.
I don't think we ever had a P, but we kept picking the OBS.
And that's one thing that gets overlooked in all of this is you just get a special run of whiskey. Nobody really understands why it happens. So it's those
when you say a special run, are you talking about when the private picks?
No, just one special
pick?
recipe. You get a special run. It doesn't make any difference what warehouse they put it into.
Yeah.
It was the
P South.
P South.
P
the
South.
south side of P, the 6th
OESV P South.
And 6th tier.
1 through 6 didn't make any difference. That particular batch, which is about 200 barrels, was spectacular.
So when you say spectacular, I mean, they were all, like the majority of them were good, or you noticed that because a lot of private
everybody
picks
picked them.
That's what I was asking. Okay.
That's cool.
Everybody
out of the 10, everybody's picking them consistently.
They were always at least no worse than top 3.
Okay.
But more than likely they were picked. They were just friggin' delicious. Didn't make any difference.
That's the best barrel of Four Roses I've ever had. Outside
Which one?
The PS run he's talking about of OESV,
right.
outside of the Al Young bottle.
Right.
The single barrel that I got, my grandmother passed. I was going back to New York for her funeral. And I stopped in at Ray's place in Indianapolis.
Okay.
And
Rule in.
yeah, the Rural Inn. They had just released it the night before, and I happened to grab a bottle. There was one bottle limit, and I grabbed that, and that was a PS 6th tier, 130 proof, the highest proof Four Roses I've ever had. That's hands down. We've had some great barrels, but that's the best single barrel pick I ever had, and the best Four Roses next to the Al Young bottle.
All right, I'm going to mention one thing.
Yeah.
The question was most memorable moment, and I've had in bourbon. So I've had a bunch, to say the least. But there are 2 that stands out, and I'm not going to repeat one of them, the Jimmy Russell. If they distilled it right the first time, they wouldn't have to do that. Talking about Jack. It was
He's talking about
The maple charcoal.
Yeah, right.
2000. Well, the other that stands out, of course, because Jimmy is just such a lovely human being. But the other thing was 1995. So this is when it really started galvanizing to me where the industry was going. We had launched a small batch collection, but Beam was having their 200th anniversary, 1774 to 1994. We took Beam to 100,000 cases that year. So we had a big barbecue. Booker was around still, and had a big barbecue at his house. So we're there, and he's got grills going just out the wazoo. And so he gets up and just thanking us all. Now his garage back behind the house was a full kitchen. And then that 6-sided smokehouse he had back in the back. I've got some already. That 6-sided smokehouse he had in his backyard.
Yeah.
It's hanging enough meat to feed the Russian army for 3 winters. So, but he gets up and is, again, it was after playing second fiddle to Brown Foreman for forever,
Right.
we blew past them after they changed the formula on after it was no longer bourbon on Early Times, which is whatever.
A travesty.
Yeah, travesty, absolutely. I've got a whole diatribe on the Early Times thing. So Booker's up there, so he flips open one of the grills, and he's got a bottle of Booker. Fellas, I appreciate what y'all done for me, and we're going to celebrate it with some bourbon and beam. So he takes this bottle of Booker and just slings it over the grill, and there's just a
Fireball.
It's just everybody went fucking nuts.
Nice.
It was the best thing
Nice.
in the world. So that really stands out. Taking Beam from when I started in 1980, Beam was doing about 20,000 cases a year to 100,000 cases by
Of
95.
white?
Yeah, white label.
Holy cow. That's a 3 million case brand right now.
Oh, Beam now is that was 4 million back then worldwide. But are you talking about the country? No,
You were talking 100,000 cases of Beam White. I'm like, well, when is it?
In 1995, yeah, absolutely.
Total output?
No, just in Kentucky.
Oh, all right. It's different.
We
Thank you.
did 100,000.
That'll be that moment will be edited out, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, please.
Don't
yeah, we
check
did
Dan Gardner.
100,000
What the fuck is wrong
cases
with
in
you?
Kentucky.
Don't interrupt your elders.
That was because of that. That was kind of a milestone for Beam, and got a lot of special memories of Beam, and I got some stories that Freddie.
Well, we have more podcasts to come, so don't worry about it.
I'm going to shut up here.
So,
What's your memory, Pop? Your bourbon and banter favorite memory?
Now it's you. You've had time to listen to all this.
I've lost more memories than I have.
I think we all have at this point.
For lots of reasons, but there's a couple things that stand out for me. So I always try to remember where we come from, right? So all of us at some point didn't know shit about bourbon. And when I first started writing Bourbon Banter, right, it was to get people to come on this tour because I wanted this unique experience.
Did you do that tour because out of selfish reasons, like you wanted to go do it and put it together, and you just figured you'd bring people along and then you'd get it paid for?
No, it wasn't to get it paid for. It was, how do I get behind the scenes access and not just the cookie cutter shitty tours they had back then, because they didn't have a lot.
But it was for selfish purposes because you wanted.
Right. I wanted the behind the scenes access. And I was like, well, if I bring a whole bunch of other bourbon nerds with me,
you might get more
maybe
access.
I can do it. And, I didn't know anybody. So I reached out at the time to Mint Julep Tours, which was brand new. Yeah. And, the owner of that was very kind to me. He's like, listen, he goes, we're fairly new. He goes, we can help you, but it's going to cost money. And if you don't have money, he goes, I'm happy to give you some emails. So he gave me Jimmy Russell's secretary's email. He gave me Jim Russell's email. He gave me Bill Samuel's email. And at that point, you could reach out to these individuals directly and get a response. So, but part of my journey.
That'd be Sean Higgins, right?
Yeah, Sean. Yeah, Sean.
Yep.
Sean Higgins and his wife, they're beautiful people. But one of the things that along the way, one of my fun stories, which was, I got this Twitter message, I guess it was, from a gentleman who we all online, who's known as the Bourbon Truth, Lloyd Christmas, whatever. And he was this very divisive character. He's very blunt, but very dialed into the bourbon industry at the time. And he reached out to me, and apparently he liked my honesty and the fact that I wasn't kissing ass and falling for the lies. And he's like, hey, I want to have a conversation with you. And he goes, I'm going to send you a burner phone number.
Yeah, because he's like super secretive.
Right, super secretive. So he sends me a burner phone number. We have a conversation. We chat for 2 hours. Fantastic conversation. And he's like, well, I'm going to send you some samples. And when you get the samples, I want to know what you think. So like this giant box shows up, and the return address he's marked out, right? So I can't track him.
But for the people that don't know, back then, and I'm not even sure if he's still on the map anymore. But
he is. Yeah,
he is.
Yeah,
he was like persona non grata in the bourbon world.
Oh yeah,
like he was like on NSA lists. Like,
right, distilleries
in the bourbon world.
would not let him on grounds.
No, they wouldn't let him on property.
Right,
he was like blackballed from the from distilleries.
He had an amazing insider track information. He was not a nice individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, Buffalo Trace had him blacklisted. He was good friends with the Colvines at Willett. But he sent me samples. He said, what do you think? And I gave him a review. Some of them I love, some of them I shit on. And he's like, all right, you passed my test. I'm like, okay, that's good to know that it was a fucking test. And then he goes, I'm going down to Kentucky. I'm representing a store. And I'd like you to come on some barrel picks. Now, I'd never been on a barrel pick before in my life. And it was me, him, two other individuals. And I don't joke. One guy owned a barbecue place, which is fantastic from what I hear. The other guy, I shit you not, was a rocket scientist. And I pull in.
Bill Samuels?
No. I pull in to Silver Dollar, and they're having dinner, and I pull in. I've never met these guys, and that's when I first met them. So the next morning, our first stop was Four Roses. Jim Rutledge. And the guy was like, my Bourbon Truth was like, we have to bring Krispy Kreme donuts. We got to see how this works. So he was insistent we picked up a Krispy Kreme donuts. And we show up at the pick, and I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't even know anything about Four Roses at the time. And there's like these 10 samples, all this shit going on. I was fucking lost as hell. Had a great time, right? And I still remember the funniest thing, though, about that whole experience was we were in the parking lot, and Jim Rutledge pulls up. And he walks out of the car, and he's just chain fucking smoking.
Just burning heaters
whole time. I'm like, what the fuck is a master distiller smoking, chain smoking for, right? It blew my mind. But anyway, we had a great time. Then we went to Heaven Hill. And Bernie was at Heaven Hill by this time. And we're going to do an Elijah Craig pick, and this is before they had barrel proof. And we taste the samples, and Lloyd comes up to me. He's like, what do you think? And I'm like, I'll be honest with you. I said, none of these taste better than anything I've gotten off the shelf. He's like, I have to agree with you. And I said, do you have to do a pick for the store? He's like, oh, I don't have to. So he's like, but I don't want to piss Bernie off. So he goes to Bernie and says like, we're going to take these samples back to the store. But they ultimately never bought a sample. They never bought the barrel. Because
Good for them.
It wasn't great. But then the height, and this is like, I'm like a year and a half into my serious bourbon journey at this point. He's like, all right, now we're going to Willett. And he goes, now here's the story. He goes, I'm friend with Drew and his dad, and we're coming, and he's gonna let us taste a lot of cool things, but he says he's not gonna sell me a barrel because they got a new bottling line that's stuck in Germany, hasn't come over yet. You know, they're bootstrapping everything. So Drew takes us, he grabs a little bag with the drill. He takes us through the rick houses. We were some of the first ones to try some of their distillate at about a year and a half old. But when you start going through these legendary rick houses, tasting things, we're about 3 hours in. We get to this last rick house, and Drew's like, let me go squeeze back here between this on the bottom floor. And he goes, Pops, come back here. And I'm looking at this. I'm like, I don't know if I can fucking get into this space, but okay, I'll squeeze in. I take my glass, and he fills up the glass. I squeeze my way out, and I've got this full Glencairn, and I smell it, and I immediately have goosebumps all the way up my fucking arms. I'm like, oh my God. He's like, is it good? I'm like, I haven't even tasted it yet, dude, but it is fantastic. It's pitch black. You know, it was dark in the rick house, but the whiskey was pitch black like oil. Smell is like, oh my God. And I tasted it. I was like, this is fucking amazing. Lloyd's like getting real excited. He's like, what is it? Can I taste it? I'm like, yeah, sure, taste it. And Drew goes, hold on, there's another one next to it. Let me get that. So then we pull that sample out. Equally delicious. And he's like, is it good? I'm like, dude, I already told you this. It's absolutely amazing. Best bourbon I've ever had in my life. And Lloyd's like, what is it? What is it? What is it? And Drew goes, well, the first one is a 21-year-old Bernheim wheated bourbon. And the second one was a 20-year-old Bernheim wheated bourbon.
Old Fitz, essentially.
Yeah, and pre-fire, right? Heaven Hill pre-fire. And so Drew had already said you couldn't buy these. And so immediately Lloyd's on the phone to the liquor store telling him what he found. It's like, how much? How much? And so Drew was like, well, there's about maybe 100 bottles in this barrel, 80 to 100 bottles. And so back then, and this was about 2012, 2013, he's like $12,000 a barrel for 100 bottles. And because he's like, Drew, Lloyd's like hammering him. He's like, So he just threw out that big ass fuck off number, right? And Lloyd goes, sold. So the liquor store is committed to these 2 barrels, right? So Lloyd came down 3 or 4 times over the next 12 months while they were waiting for this to be bottled. The first stop, he's like, hey, this is really good stuff. Drew, you should be proud of this. He goes, can we get a special wax? Can we get a gold wax on this? So he talks him to the gold wax. Next trip down, he's like, man, these are really legendary. These are like, of the top things. So he gets Drew to agree to red ink these bottles. If you know Willet and the red ink, it's legendary. So ultimately, these got bottled as the Weeded Patriot and the Weeded Warrior. And Lloyd wouldn't let me buy one because he didn't want to dick me over on the price because he was selling them for $800 a bottle.
At the time.
So he gave me one.
Well, $800 a bottle, like
at the time.
In when? 12, 09?
12, 13.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he gave me one.
Which is an aggressive
for
number
free.
at the time.
No, it was an aggressive, hugely aggressive. He gave me one for free. So I got married in 99. So about 2019, a member of Bourbon Banter team reaches out to me. He's like, hey, one of those Weeded Warriors or Patriots, I forget which one it was. He goes, I just saw one go for $10,000. So I don't flip bourbon except for this one. And we put it in a razzle.
Except when it's financially prudent.
10 grand to pay for a vacation trip. So that's one of my early stories. It's a legendary pick, some of the most amazing bourbon that I've had.
So to interject real quick, and not to necessarily interrupt, but just for any, and I'm sure the majority of people that are paying attention, that are watching or listening to this now, probably or may not know Lloyd Christmas or Bourbon Truth. Do a little internet research. Go through his Twitter feed and wherever else he is now. You will be fantastically rewarded with the back and forth, as well as some of the information that is still out there.
Google Lloyd Christmas.
Just trust me. I'm not going to use his real name because then I'll have
And it's not it's not the Dumb and Dumber character.
No, it is not.
And then add the term ball sweat.
I don't know anything about that.
Yes, I do. And also check out the Bourbon Tasting Hall of Fame notes.
Yes.
And you'll be rewarded. But so that's one of my early stories. But as we start building the Bourbon Banter team, we've had so many great gatherings over the years, get-togethers. But it's less of a story and more of a movement is what I am most proud of over the years of building this is we provide a lot of education. We provide a lot of reviews. But the thing I'm most proud of is, to the point what you said, is this, right? Is getting together with people and building community. We've doubled down the last year and a half in building that. And while people chase bottles and they do things of that nature, we are focused on the community aspect of things. And I want to invite everybody that's out there to join us and become part of that, because bourbon is always enjoyed best when you're with people. You have these conversations, you have the learning moments, you have people like Steve here bringing random samples out and sharing them.
It's never, ever been better by yourself. Never once.
That's right. And the people you meet, the connections you make are lifelong, and it's fantastic. So Brent, Bob, Steve, Aaron, Jim, and countless others that have been part of building Bourbon and Banter. I want to thank you all for everything that you've done. Dan, you've been a fantastic brand partner, a great friend. And I want to continue doing this for years and years to come. And even if we decide to stop writing reviews, for me, the community is vibrant, and combining and getting together around a drink is really the last salvation of humankind, as far as I'm concerned. So Steve's going to pour some whiskey in my glass, so I'm going to toast everybody here real quick.
This is an 18-year-old Heaven Hill, I think, one of the Insiders collection, so it's never been to market. So here we go.
Pops is
120 proof.
All right, pour this in my glass, sir.
Yeah, he's got his
yours.
arm extended.
Thank you, guys. This has been great.
First. I don't
All
know how
right,
much is left.
so we're going to wrap this up. Gentlemen,
We're going to wrap this up, and then we're going to go outside and light up the fire pit and fire up some cigars and continue this.
14 amazing years, many more to come. And I
Congrats, Pops.
Remember, folks, if you're going to drink
curious.
Drink curious.
Amen. Fantastic.
Well, what's your preference?
Bourbon, if you got it.
Bourbon from Kentucky.
I should certainly fucking hope so.